Hello, everyone. Hi, folks. Can you hear me? Is the mic working? Can you hear me, everybody? Hello. Can Okay, I see. So you can hear me. So welcome everybody to this webinar titled Data Storytelling. It's a topic that I think it's really interesting, a topic that I personally enjoy a lot. So I hope I can share with you my enthusiasm for data storytelling. Um, so let me just start by introducing myself. So my name is Lucas Varela, and today I will be talking about data storytelling. So we're going to take a look at what exactly this means. We're going to take a look at the good practices of data visualization, and we're going to learn how to create these compelling stories using data and their visualization. But before we start, just one moment. Um, I'm going to disappear for a moment so you can see my slide. Uh, Let me talk about, well, maybe this is not the best. Okay, let me talk about a data scientist and our school. So currently we have three different schools: the Cyber University, the Data Scientist, and Dev University schools, where we offer different programs, training programs that are going to well, teach you different topics that go from data engineering to data analysis. I really encourage you to take a look at our website and take a look at the training programs that we have. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that goes um, into all the different, let's say, data domains. I think data engineers, data scientists, and data analysts can profit from uh, data storytelling. So enough with this brief introduction. Let's just jump right into the topic of today. So the agenda for today is first, we're going to start by saying what data storytelling is. Uh, then we're going to take a look at the best practices for uh, data visualization. Then we're going to go more precisely into what data storytelling is and how to create good data storytelling. And finally, I'm going to discuss some of the tools that you can use to create great data visualizations. So let's start by talking about what is data storytelling. This is the process of using data, visuals, and a narrative to communicate insights effectively. So it's the intersection of these three concepts that we have here in bold. And the idea is that we're going to start from data. So we have data that contains relevant information. And we want to explore, to understand this data and to use it to get better insights. So we're going to create visuals that are going to let us understand this. And then using these visuals, we're going to construct a narrative that is going to be easy, that is going to be compelling to our audience. So finally, we're going to be able to transform data into insights and those insights into action items that people are going to accept, they're going to actually be compelled by the information that we show them to take action. So why is data storytelling working? Let's say why is it important to use data storytelling when we want to share our insights or what we learned? Well, the idea is that stories are more memorable than raw facts. So visuals combined with text, combined with figures are going to be more memorable, or they can more easily be remembered than text by itself. So we can change, for example, something like sales drop 15% last quarter into a chart that is going to be uh, memorable. So people are going to remember not only the figures, but also the plot that we showed them. And also they're going to get a better picture because this type of phrase might not tell the whole picture. We're going to see this in just a moment. So basically, if you want to create a good data storytelling, what you're going to need to do is to identify the important message that you want to transfer. And then based on this message, you're going to select the appropriate visuals. You're going to use the good practices of data visualization, and then you're going to use this to communicate your results. Here we have the previous example that I showed you to you. So we could use a simple phrase like sales dropped 15% last quarter, but this could be normal. For example, it could be a seasonal fluctuation, or but here we see, for example, that it's not a seasonal fluctuation, what is actually causing this drop in the last quarter, because we can compare it to the behavior of last year. So we had a growing trend, then we have a drop. So this visual immediately tells us that something is wrong, that we need to take action. So visuals let us get the whole picture and understand if what basically the whole message, if it's positive, if it's negative, and why it is uh, important for you. So now that we have discussed data storytelling, I want to take a moment to discuss some of the data visualization good practices. Before we discuss the good practices, why should we even use visuals? Because it's faster to process, and it allows for a clear communication of what we want to show. For this, I have a very interesting example, which is basically a table where we have 4 different sets of data. And these 4 sets, so we have here the X and Y column for 3 different sets. If we compute the statistics of these different sets, we're going to see that well, they all have the same average, the same variance on the different axes, and we might believe that basically they are the same data set. But once we visualize them, so this is the famous Anscombe quartet, we notice that they have very different behaviors. So this is not to say that statistics uh, are not important, but data visualization can help us complete the picture and get a better understanding of what we're actually visualize of the data that we have at hand. Now, to design good data visualizations, there are 3 main steps that I think are important. The first is that your visuals should be purpose driven. So they should answer a specific question for a specific audience. They should be clear, meaning that they should use the appropriate chart and should be as clear as possible. So this is also going to be your task to make as simple as possible what you're showing. And then they should be, of course, accurate. So you have to honestly represent the data that you have. There's several, um, let's say, ways in which people force visuals to show things that are not necessarily well, basically to give the wrong impression. And this, of course, is not what you should do, because not only is it, well, not only are you transmitting fake information, but also you're going to lose the trust of your audience. So it's really important to use to be honest, to give accurate representations of what you're showing. Now, here I have a short list. This is by no means a comprehensive list of charts, but some examples. So when comparing data, you can use bar charts, column charts, and histograms. For time trends, it's a good idea to use line and area charts. For relationships and correlations, scatter plots and bubble charts can be really good. And for distributions, we have histograms, box plots, and violin plots. But when you have a specific question, you're going to choose the appropriate visual that goes with that question. So this is really important because you should never start the other way around. You should not start like, how how can I find a use for this specific um, chart? This should never be your way to reason. You should start from, I need to represent this data. What is the appropriate visual in this case? So an important part of data visualization is the use of colors. So colors are mm, used oftenly or in the wrong way. So I will try to I try to gather some of the best practices of using colors here, so that you can avoid um, well, uh, using colors in the wrong way. The first thing to know is that there are different types of color palettes. So there's sequential palettes that are best for um, colors to represent data that has some type of order. For example, if you have temperatures, you know that a color 20 degrees is less than 30 degrees, and 10 degrees is less than 20 and 30. So there's some logic in or a way in which you can order those values. In those cases, sequential palettes intuitively uh, make people think of this order without explicitly stating it. So it helps comprehension. Then you have categorical palettes, which are better for qualitative data, in which you don't have a specific order. So for example, if I don't know, you want to represent three brands, you're not going to use a sequential palette because you want to represent three different brands that are not necessarily one superior to the other, or there's no order for them. So in those cases, you use categorical palettes. A good practice is to use to be careful with the number of colors that you use. So here you can see that there's too many colors, and this makes the readability of this chart to the left very hard. There's ways to either avoid using colors. So here, for example, this chart was reorganized in such a way that we don't even need to use colors because we know exactly what each pair is by the label in the y-axis. Now, this is something that is also really important. Don't use colors if it's not needed. So not only colors, but dimensions as well. If colors can be avoided, or there's another information or another ax or dimension that is already telling us this information, then why add more information that needs to be processed by your audience? So here we have another example of too many colors, which we could again uh, uh, let's say, change the chart in such a way that we keep a couple of colors. Here we have changed the years become the colors and the categories become the y-axis. And in doing so, we simplified um, the color charge of our visual. So a good rule is uh, 3 or 4 colors is a good maximum, but you should at the least, I would say the something that becomes unacceptable is above 5. So more than 5 colors, it starts to become really hard to understand, and you're pushing, you're risking always the possibility that you your uh, that your audience is going to get lost. I see here there's a comment that is telling us to be careful with emotive stories or basically biasing the result of the history by using emotion. So you have to try to be neutral. I completely agree with this comment. So just to show it. Thank you for your input. Uh, I'll try to read your comments as they appear. Now, another good practice is to use intuitive colors. For example, often we often associate good things, or let's say the color green with the positive and the red with the negative. So using the opposite um, convention is going to be really confusing for the audience that you have. So I would say either use the usual convention or avoid at least using the complete opposite, because it's going to give an extra step, an extra uh, complexity to your plot. Your viewers are always going to be second guessing if red is good or bad if you use this convention. There's another example here uh, of using forest and lake. So you're not going to use, for example, green for lake and blue for um, for um, for a forest. Finally, we have the example female male, in which I think it's better to use neutral colors. What I'm saying here is try to avoid, let's say, uh, in this case, the use of colors that could be that are, let's say, a sexist association, there's better ways uh, to to show this. Here, there's another example of intuitive colors. So in this chart, uh, let's say the objective of the person that created this chart, they are showing revenue by month and the different months in the x-axis. And the objective was to show there was a well 3 good months, so to highlight those 3 months. But they used orange, which again could be more oftenly associated with a not so good performance. So it's not ideal. So either you invert the order or use again something more neutral, like in this case. So always, I guess a topic that is going to be repeating itself during this talk is try to think, let's say, good data visualizations is thinking about your audience, helping them, um, let's say, easily interpret things. So put yourself in the place of your audience and try to reduce as much the mental calculations they have to do, or the interpretation they have to do. You have to digest the data for you, for them, sorry. Then you have the contrast of the plots. So uh, try to use a good contrast between the colors so that they are easy to read. So here you have an example of, let's say, how hard it is to read this type of contrast. And then here you have a clear readability of what you're showing. Here we have an example with our, let's say, our own logo. So here it was a bit hard to read. Here we have increased the contrast to improve readability. Then there's also another thing we need to consider when using colors, and that is that people have different types of vision. I see there's a question saying that the event, if asking if the event is being recorded, and yes, it is being recorded. Um, so people have different types of vision. Here, our objective is to show, for example, this plot, which with a normal view would be easy to read, so you can clearly see the difference between red and green with a normal vision. Then with these types of vision, like deuteranopia and protanopia, sorry for my pronunciation, they become much harder to read. So if you want your audience, all of your audience, to get your message, you have to think that it is possible that they have one of these conditions. It's not that uncommon. So fortunately, there's color palettes that have been that researchers have already, let's say, made the effort for us to test them, and they are easy to read across all visions. So you see here the same charts uh, with the same chart with a different color palette remains easy to read for the normal vision, but then it is also readable for other types of vision. So it will not always be possible to cater to all the different types of vision, but at least try to include as much of them as you can using the color palettes that exist for this purpose. Later, I will show you. I will give you a link to let's say basically the Seaborn uh, let's say, guide to colors, and there they mention some of these color palettes that you can use. Now let's talk about some visuals to avoid. So pie charts, uh, everybody loves them. You see them everywhere, but they are not so great. Mm, let's say many times, or I would dare say most of the times, they are replaceable by a bar chart, and they're much easier to read. Here we have an example that it's a bit of an exaggeration, but of course, no, it actually happens actually that you see these types of pie charts where you have a million colors, and then it's very hard to read. So pie charts, I would basically ban them. There's a few cases where you can use them, but most of the times it's not the best plot. Uh, Here again, I was a bit strong with never, but most of the cases, 3D plots are going to be harder to read than two-dimensional plots. So they're it's really there are really specific cases in which you can actually use 3D graphics. And okay, the donut chart is just well, it should also be avoided. If you want to learn more on colors, I really recommend to you there's a guide called Color for Data Visualization by Adobe, which is amazing. They uh, they they give you a bunch of examples of what to do, and a counter example which basically teaches you all the basics of how to use color. So it's a really amazing resource. Then there's the Seaborn Choosing Color Palette guide, which also helps you with again, it's less comprehensive than the first resource I'm sharing, but it has the advantage that it tells you the color palettes that you can use within Python. So we will um, discuss this at the end when we talk about the tools. Okay. Now, I'm going to take one moment to discuss the C pattern. So the idea is that let's say, normally people will have the tendency to read in this order. So they will start reading on the top left corner and read in following this pattern. So consequently, you should organize your plots and especially your reports or slides or dashboards in this way, because it it helps you understand where to put the things that are more important, and order them in this fashion. So from most important to least important, you should follow this path. So this will help you organize where you put the most important things, and where the ones that are a little less more relevant. Specifically, I think this is the best use of this is in dashboards and reports. Here we have an example of a Power BI dashboard report, sorry, in which we follow this reading pattern. So you have here some metrics that are important, then this should be the plot that is, let's say, the one that contains the most relevant information that you want to uh, display, and then the next ones in this order. So I have discussed some of the good practices for data to create good visualizations. But now let's talk about implementing data storytelling. So you're going to see that data storytelling and data visualization are, well, very close together, or they're linked tight together, because good data storytelling involves good data visualization. So the first thing you need to do is to identify what is important in the data. So you have to make a process of filtering and keeping what is relevant for your audience. And then you want to create a clear message, and uh, based on this, you're going to start to design uh, the visuals to support your story. So in order to do this, you have to first understand your audience. So if your audience is a technical team, they're going to want to know about details, and you can use visuals that have more technical jargon, even if, let's say, you should try to simplify as much as you can. But if your public is technical, you can go deeper into the details. If what you want to do is to talk to a broader audience, you have to do an effort to simplify, while, of course, well, keeping an honest representation of your message. So based on your audience, you're going to design the message that you want to deliver, and then you're going to use the data to create visuals that help you show this message. So just as for data visualization, you have to simplify and focus the attention. So this is really important because, again, you have to think about your audience. You have spent potentially weeks or months working with data, understanding data. So you have to uh, give a step back and recognize that what you have been working on is not necessarily, or most likely not, in the minds of your audience. So you have to really make an effort to make the message as clear as possible. Select the information that is relevant to pass on, and not you cannot include everything that you did in potentially months, because then you risk, let's say, losing your audience. So you have to emphasize on the key insights, and then you're going to choose the correct, well, apply the data visualization good practices to choose the best visual that goes with your story. So in order to craft a clear narrative, you follow similar steps to those that you use when crafting a literal story. Uh, you have to start with the problem or the question. So you are going to develop it develop the question in a clear and logical order. So if you want to end up explaining that sales, for example, have dropped 15% this month, then it would be important to give the context of the company in a couple of slides. So you start by saying sales were going well. We had increase in the previous months. There's a competitor that enters the sector, and now we see that there's a drop in our sales. So you make the effort to make the the audience understand where they're at, the context of where they're at, why things are happening, and why it is important for them to know this so that they can take actions based on what you just presented. So finally, uh, as I said, you should not only make them aware of the problem, but if possible, if it's within the scope of let's say your analysis, you should conclude with some recommendations on how to, let's say, how to move past the what you have shown beyond the 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 information that you have delivered. Now, I want to move to show a couple of nice examples of data visualization and data storytelling. So there's a website on by the UNODC showing the use of synthetic drugs, and I think it was really clearly explained. So you can check this out on their official website. There's this chart showing coffee consumption, or the time of the day at which people consume coffee. Here, it's one of the rare cases where a, a pie chart actually works. You have few colors. You have only, you're representing percentages, so it makes sense, and it goes well with the drawing. So it adds, it captures the attention of the viewer. Here you have an example of, let's say, an initial plot that doesn't actually tell us how to move forward to a better but yet still improvable version, in which, let's say, here you had two trends. You had to read every item of the y-axis, and here you see a trend. Basically, you have an organized plot. So the creator of this plot thought of ordering um, the impact of the different categories, and then there are messages that summarize what we're seeing. So it's complementing the visual with some text. However, I would say that this plot is not perfect because it it is very saturated. So this is actually something that we should avoid when using presentations, when using visuals. We should have, let's say, an uncluttered representation of what we want to show. If if you have a visual that has too much information, usually there's going to be a way to divide it into different parts such that it is easier to understand. So that it will take us to, I will show you another example of this where the presentation is just completely overloaded, and then it is really hard to understand. Another good example is, it's in line with the principle of less is more. So here we have a representation that is very technical. So this, for a paper, it's a good way to show things in a paper. But in a presentation, it's maybe not the most effective way to present things, especially if your audience is not very technical. So here you have a simplified version of the four graphics that we had before. So if possible, well, try to reduce, or to simplify the content as much as you can. Now that we have seen a couple of good examples, I want to also show a couple of bad examples. So here we have a classic of politics, the misrepresentation of scale. So here we have a sentence that says there was a crushing in the elections, but when you see the plot, it seems to support this idea because you see this bar is basically almost half of the red bar. But when you see the numbers, you see that the story is really different. There was only a 1% difference. So this is what I was mentioning before of giving a- an accurate representation of your data here by choosing our where the y-axis begins. We can exaggerate a trend, and this is something that is used everywhere in the world by all political parties. The idea of this post is simply to show one case, but it is seen across across all politics. Um, then we have here an example of a wrong visual. So here, if you take a look at the different pie charts, you can see that the percentages don't add up to 100. So here you have 73, 72, 74, and actually it's because they add up to 100%. If you add them up across the x axis. So this is not the traditional use of pie charts, and this is going to make your audience, well, they're going to really have to stay a moment. They're trying to interpret what they're seeing. So this type of plot could be replaced with something else that doesn't require to overwrite what your preconception, or let's say the usual use of charts. Here we have a misuse of dimensions. So as you can see, there's different categories, so blue, red, black, and yellow. And we're supposed to, there's a percentage attached to each bubble. Now, why is yellow apparently the biggest bubble here if it has 13%? So it's not the biggest. Here, 95% has a smaller bubble than the the purple one, which should, in theory, represent the rest. So it's again going against the natural perception of the plot, which makes the user or the audience guess what they're reading, and then they're going to it's an extra effort that you have to avoid in your audience. Always remember this: your audience is there for a couple of minutes. There's a lot of information that is being sent to them, so you have to make it as easy as possible to be consumed. Uh, I just want to go back because I forgot to say this. I mentioned it before, but I want to say it again. If there's no need for a dimension, don't use it. So here, if you're adding the numbers, um, uh, well, there's no need to use the size of the bubbles. Here, I would say it's not incredibly wrong to use it because okay, the plot it's fairly simple to understand. But if you have a chart that is showing the x-axis, the y-axis, colors, sizes, it starts to become really hard to to digest for your audience. So if there's a dimension that is already represented somewhere else, then don't use dimensions that are not needed. This is another error that I see a lot. It's changing the scales of the here of the different colors. So you see that you have two maps here showing I think this was the COVID cases in some state, and the idea is that they showed an after and then a before and an after. And when you look at the two maps, you let's say at first glance you would say it's it's not bad, right? It's not sorry, it's not bad. No, it's not getting worse because you have here three zones that are in red, and then more or less the rest of the zones have the same distribution of colors. But when you look closer, you see that here, this zone, the one that was labeled as red, is actually between 2,900 cases until 4,600, which is now part of this new category that was defined. So if you're showing a comparison, um, you have to keep the same convention so that you can visually detect the differences. So that's another error. And finally, we get to the example where you have this was a slide of a presentation that has too much information. So when you see this type of slide, uh, it's overwhelming. It has too much information. It has here small print that it's practically unreadable. So a PowerPoint presentation, or let's say in general, when you're presenting things, it's not the place to add a fine print like this. This is meant to be kept in a in a paper or in a legal document, but in a presentation, unless it's a support material or something that you don't show basically until the end of the presentation, you should you should avoid this level of saturation in your slides. Okay, so that basically concludes what I wanted to show you about data storytelling, and I hope I got you excited about learning how or to implement your own data visualizations. So now we should talk about what are the tools that are in the market. Uh, so here we have well two options. We have coding tools, which are flexible and precise. For example, Python, the programming language, which is really popular in data science, and data analysis, has three libraries that allow you to create plots. So here I mentioned them, Matplotlib, Seaborn, and Plotly. And the advantage of learning Python and learning how to visualize using Python is that it's very flexible. So you with coding, you can get things to do exactly what you want, but this comes with a price, which is it is a bit more technical. So it requires to learn how to code and start to learn coding concepts. Then we have the BI tools, BI short for business intelligence tools, which are, if I can summarize them, they are fast and interactive. You have, I have mentioned three options here. So three really popular BI tools. So you have Microsoft, which has Power BI. Then you have Looker from Google, sorry, and then you have Tableau from Salesforce. These are three of the tools that are, let's say, leading the market. Their advantage is that they're very intuitive. It's easy to share your results, and they allow you to create dynamic filters that are really easy to use and to implement. However, this again comes with a price. It's less customizable than what you can do in Python, and you depend on their software. To go a bit deeper into picking the right BI tool, so uh, basically, in the end, most of the times you will end up using the BI tool that is available in your where you work at. Currently, Microsoft is the leader of the markets with, let's say, mainly big enterprises using this service. Uh, a strong competitor is Looker Studio. It's not, let's say, it's not as easy to use and as complete as the Power BI option, but it is a let's say a cheaper option that many enterprises are starting to use. And then you have, well, a myriad of options here, but just to mention you a couple of them. In conclusion, well, the benefits of data storytelling is that they help you deliver insights, they help you drive informed decision making, and they improve retention. So your stories are easier to remember than simply text. Uh, then there's the risks. You have to be careful uh, to avoid misinterpretation of your plots. You have to avoid to overload your plots, and also while picking your key insights. So this is one of the hardest tasks when creating a a story, a data story, um, is you need to pick the correct insights. So you have to make sure that you simplify, but not such not to a point where you're misleading people and basically you lose the trust of your audience. Uh, so the key takeaways here is use visuals and colors effectively to deliver your insights. Be careful with biases, misrepresentations, and if I may say, information overload, which is one of the most common errors we see out there. So slides that don't have a single space available, avoid this. Simplify, divide your message if you need, but avoid overloading your presentations. Okay, there's a question here. So let me display this question. So actually, now we're in the final part. Thank you, folks, for your time. Uh, so there's the question: what about the difference of cost between Python and BI tools? So this is a really interesting topic. So to use Python, uh, it is free. You can learn it using, let's say, as long as you have a computer, you can install Python and start learning Python. BI tools, there's some that offer less and more access for free, especially if your question is to learn, there's some that have free versions. For example, the Power BI offers Power BI Desktop, which is completely free. The only thing is that you need to have a Windows computer, and then you're going to be able to learn how to use it. The paid services, the Power BI service, well, there you do have to pay, but to start, Power BI Desktop is more than enough, I would say. Uh, and then you have, for example, Looker Studio, which is Looker Studio is free, so you can start learning on Looker Studio. And then the other options, it depends. So they most of them have a free tier, and then a free tier, sorry, and then a paid one. So you can start learning most of the times with the free version, and then as your level increases, well, maybe you're going to have to go into the paid service. Usually, the no, or in an enterprise, the paid service is not going to be taken care of by you, but by the enterprise. But to learn, you can start with a free version. There's another interesting question. So, what can be expected in data storytelling with the rise of generative AI and automated visualization tools? So, uh, I think that we're a long way from having everything completely automated by AI, especially I, I've tried these tools to generate visuals, and usually it's not yet at that point. What I can tell you is that these tools will help you process your data faster, prepare your data faster, and then you can spend more time in the analysis of the data, in the fine tuning of your visuals to take your visuals to the next level. So I wouldn't say, if your question is data storytelling going to be replaced by AI? Personally, I think we're a long way from that, but it is going to help, I think, data analysts, data scientists to move quicker and create their visuals quicker. And it's going to be a tool rather than a replacement. So, okay, folks. Thank you. If there's no more questions, I thank you again for your time. I hope that this session was insightful, and that you start practicing with BI tools, with Python tools, or even with your PowerPoint presentations. I think many of the guidelines that I gave can be used at that level of presentation too. So. Good luck with your future data storytelling endeavors.